Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in to the Fantasy Roundup. I'm your host, Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Alongside me, Gabe Henderson. What's going on, man?
Nothing. Excited to talk about some fun topics today.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got a lot on the docket today. Today's episode, going to be talking a lot about Dynasty leagues because I know for those of y'all that are worried about fantasy football this time of year, chances are you're in a Dynasty league or two. I know me and Gabe are. We're each in 2 dynasties, so we've been wheeling and dealing in those. I know I have, trying to improve my team before the NFL draft. So we've got buys and sells for y'all as far as players. We go over the core 4 positions and, got a couple buy candidates and a couple sell candidates to try and get value here before the draft pops off, and that's when people are going to be more reluctant to trade. So try and get these trades done early to take advantage of value. And then we've also got fantasy baseball waiver wire pickups. We are over a weekend of the baseball season now, and now's the time to kind of start looking at the waiver wire. Not time to panic, but it's time to start doing some honest evaluation. If you got a player that's still hitting under 200, chances are they could be in for a rough season. So not saying to make drastic changes, but make adjustments if needed. And then I got my rant at the end about Odell Beckham Jr. His signing with the Ravens being a big topic. But first off, I'd like to thank all the listeners. I see Jerry in here. What up, Jerry? And yes, we do have some good info ready. So we're going to get right into that. And we'd like to thank our sponsor, Caesars Sportsbook. Before we get too deep into it, make sure to go to Caesars and take advantage of getting that first free bet on them if you haven't already. And no, you're good, Jerry. You're good. I know you're one of our loyal listeners. You can't make them all, but you usually do make them all. So yeah, we missed you yesterday, but glad to have you back on today. So let's get to these headlines, Gabe. We've got Odell Beckham, of course, mentioned him signed with the Baltimore Ravens on a 1-year deal. And Bryce Young, now favored to go first overall in the NFL draft, was C.J. Stroud for a while after the Panthers traded up. But now it's Bryce Young, the favorite to go first. Could shake things up there for fantasy. I remember our last show, we were thinking Young to the Texans, Stroud to the Panthers. And then Jordan Walker from my Cardinals, the young phenom there, Jordan Walker extends his hitting streak to 10 games. He's gotten a hit in every game so far. I wish my Cardinals were doing as well as he's doing. He is killing it as a 20-year-old rookie there. And then a lot of injuries piling up in MLB, unfortunately. O'Neal Cruz for the Pirates, Tim Anderson and the White Sox, among the latest MLB stars to go down. Any thoughts on those headlines?
It's unfortunate, all the injuries in the MLB early season. I know we touched on the pitchers last week, and now we're talking about the star fielders. So fingers crossed things can get better and we can keep the stars healthy, grow the game a little bit. But, I know a lot of people talking about the Odell signing, and I know that's going to be your rant later. I know you got a little bit to say on it, so we'll save your thoughts on that. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that's a big move for the Ravens. Odell, maybe not the flashiest number one that you want in 2023, 2024 season, but if it keeps Lamar Jackson happy, then that's huge for Baltimore.
Right. Yeah, and it was one of those things to where I could have also put in the headline how Lamar helped recruit Odell Beckham to Baltimore. And I kind of figured that as soon as I saw that signing announcement, I was like, there's no way Odell Beckham, who's over 30 years old now, would sign with Baltimore had he thought there was a chance Lamar Jackson wasn't going to play. I was almost certain that he talked to Lamar. And Lamar put it on Instagram. They screenshotted that they, had a FaceTime conversation. So it's like,
pretty sure they linked up afterwards in Miami as well after the UFC fights on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that probably explains it then. They probably started talking then they probably FaceTime Sunday to lock it in. And it's crazy how things have changed now. And Lamar, I know, is a pioneer in that, trying to be his own agent, kind of call his own shots more than in the past. So yeah, definitely interesting. But I'll save my thoughts for Odell later on. Let's just say I wasn't too big of a fan of the signing, but yeah,
Let's
let's get
just
into.
say the way that I've thought about it, a lot of people don't like the money. It's up to $18 million with incentives. That 18 million is not only what you're getting in Odell, you're getting it in Lamar as well. It could potentially keep Lamar around, and I think any Ravens fan would happily take that.
Yeah, because it's to the point now that Lamar's definitely going to play there under the franchise tag. He tried to force the trade leverage, didn't happen. Nobody bit, nobody was interested. So, and he probably thought, well, even if someone was, it's like, do I really want to leave Baltimore, a team that made the playoffs last year, has a good defense? If he leaves Baltimore and then has a bad year, it's like, well, then it might be costing himself money. So he probably figures he's going to play this year under the tag and hoping to have a huge year statistically and then try to turn that into his contract demand, which is like a freaking Deshaun Watson-esque fully guaranteed deal.
I wouldn't bet against him either.
Shoot, I think I might. I'm not trying to sound like a hater, but to me, Lamar he's been too injury prone. I mean, he had the great year in 2019, but that's 4 years ago now. I mean, it's not like that was. I mean, it's somewhat fresh, but it's not. I mean, the past few years he's had a lot with injuries, but we'll get more to that later. We can debate about that some more at the end. Let's get to these dynasty thoughts here, because when it comes to dynasty leagues, it's like the stock market. I mean, fantasy sports in general is like the stock market, but dynasty it's a year-round stock market because you can trade at any time. You can trade in January, February, March, like when the league is like had just ended and then hadn't even close to starting the next season. You can already start planning ahead, and a lot of times you can find value with these guys late. I mean, early. I meant to say, I think as far as like 2022 season, like people are like, oh, that's a lot of people probably still in 2022 mode celebrating their championships. Well, us degenerates, we turn the page and we're on to the next one. We're on to the next year, worrying about our dynasty league. So we'll kick this thing off with quarterbacks. I recently made a trade for my buy candidate here, Jordan Love. I am buying Jordan Love because he's young. He's finally going to get the keys to the car there in Green Bay. And that's a pretty damn good car there. That's a damn good offense to be taken over. I mean, they hadn't had quarterback problems there in over 20 years. They had Brett Favre controlling it and then Aaron Rodgers. So you got 30 years. I mean, go back to the 90s. They haven't had any quarterback trouble there since then. But now that Aaron Rodgers wants out, it's time for Jordan Love to take over. And I'm not sure if Jordan Love will go on to be a future Hall of Famer like Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, but I think he'll be a very viable quarterback for fantasy because he'll have pretty good weapons there with Christian Watson leading the way. And their defense, not too hot anymore. They lost some pieces there, with the Rodgers, the bad contract, having to pay all that, but they haven't been able to sign free agents. So Love, he's going to be forced to chuck it to where I feel like he's, age is a big thing in Dynasty. You got to try to find younger players a lot of times. So if you're a team, for example, the team I acquired him in, did the trade to get Love because I had Tom Brady who retired. So I lost one of my quarterbacks, and it's a super flex league where you pretty much have to start two quarterbacks. So my other one was it's funny, the other ones in that league are Russell Wilson and then Geno Smith, who I'm about to get to as a sell candidate. But I actually didn't trade Geno in that trade, traded Cam Akers to get Jordan Love. So I'm kind of hurting at running back now. But my point here is that you can get Jordan Love for cheap because once he starts playing and putting up numbers, you won't be able to get him for cheap anymore. So get him now while his stock's down because a lot of people are poo-pooing on Green Bay because they're getting rid of Aaron Rodgers. But Green Bay is going to be okay. Green Bay is not just going to become irrelevant.
No, they'll be just fine.
And I see your buy here, Gabe, is Dak Prescott, who's not old per se, but he's pushing 30 now and kind of had a down year last year, but I'm guessing you think it's a good time to buy low on Dak.
I definitely do. He had a ton of interceptions last year, overturning the coaching staff. He's losing Zeke, which I eventually think is going to be a positive for him.
Especially if they get Bijan.
Yeah, and they There's been talks of bringing Zeke back, but I don't think he's going to have as big a role if that happens. But yeah, a lot of people are down on Dak Prescott, and that's why I like him. He could have low value in the eyes of some people, especially after last season. I like the moves that the Cowboys have made so far, and I think they'll help him out a lot. This is a guy who's a really good fantasy quarterback when he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he puts up numbers. Sometimes he makes bonehead decisions, but for fantasy, he still got it. He's a good buy low candidate. He might throw Russell Wilson in that mix too, although Russ was just so bad last year. My gosh, at least
Yeah,
Dak was throwing for yards, even though he had a lot of picks.
Dak will always get his, and I think especially the Brandon Cooks edition will help him out a lot. I mean, that's a 1,000-yard
Hmm.
receiver. We know how high I am on Brandon Cooks. I consider putting him in my receiver category, but he just doesn't work for this. So I would really wanted to shout him out here because I think that he'll really help Dak Prescott out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then my sell candidate is a guy that's coming off a career year last year in Geno Smith. And I mean, I love the Geno Smith story. Hell, he saved my butt in that Dynasty League, the one that I had, because I had Russell Wilson, who was horrible. So I was like, well, I can't keep starting Russell. I was start playing Brady and Geno, to where Geno was my QB1 most weeks, because Brady wasn't that good last year either. So I mean, Geno freaking saved me there, but which I'm going to hold on to him for now, but I'm going to try. I put him on the trade block recently because to me, he's somebody that people will be looking at his numbers from last year and be like, oh, Geno, man, I should trade for him. But hate to be a hater, but last year I think was kind of a fluke. I know it's a good system there in Seattle, but I don't see how Geno is just going to all of a sudden be able to keep up that kind of production. I think he kind of caught a lot of teams slipping. A lot of teams are sleeping on him, but now that there's a full year's worth of film on him as a starter, I think defenses are going to adjust to where I don't see Geno replicating last season. I think he could still be like a QB2, but if you can trade him and get him, get back something better, especially something younger too, because Geno's over 30. Like age is a big
Exactly.
factor in Dynasty. So it's not like Geno's a young cat. I mean, he's getting up there too, to where it's like I would sell him now before his value goes down.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's going to be hard to recreate last year. I'm intrigued to see because it was a really good story last year. Gino was really good, fully deserved the extension he got. So, yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how he bounces back. But I agree. It's one of those things where, to kind of the opposite of mine, where I'm buying Dak Prescott low, you're going to sell Geno Smith high.
Yeah, and I feel like that's how you got to do it in these dynasty leagues. Like I said earlier, it's like the stock
Absolutely.
market: buy low, sell high. And a lot of times, if I mean, that's not always true. I mean, Gino might continue his production, but it usually does. Percentage wise, that tends to be what works. So, and that's how we got to do here in fantasy sports. You got to play the numbers game, play the percentages, and you usually can be ahead of the curve by doing so. So I'm gonna keep doing that, even though there's no foolproof method, but I feel like our method is about as good as it can get. So we're gonna keep it going. And I see your sell here, Gabe, is Malik Willis, who, man, he's he didn't do a whole lot last year. I bet this would be one where you're just done with him. You just be selling low at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned multiple times, and for anyone who doesn't play Dynasty, age is a huge thing. And, if you have that young quarterback, even if they don't have a great first year, everyone's high on them. Like, if I'm in a league where I could get Desmond Ritter for cheap, that's worth a flyer. He's a young quarterback. He's going to start. I had Malik Willis, got good value for him last year, just because I'm not a Ryan Tannehill truther. Don't think Tannehill's really all that great anymore. It's time for Tennessee to just cut ties. And so
Mhm.
I picked up Malik Willis, and he ended up starting a few games. But, age is important in dynasty leagues, but overall quality is better. And Malik Willis just doesn't have what it takes to cut it in the NFL, I don't think. He's not a
Mhm.
starting quarterback in the NFL. This is a dude who would struggle to throw for 100 yards in just about every game he played. I just didn't see enough from him to warrant keeping him. I mean, you don't even have to get a good return from Malik Willis. It's almost worth just cutting ties and going with a flyer on a rookie quarterback this year.
Yeah, I feel that because it's like some people go too much with age. Like, oh, Malik Willis, a young quarterback, I'll
Hmm.
take him. Another one I'll throw in that mix is Trey Lance, because I mean it looks like Trey
Yeah.
Lance is probably going to get overtaken by Brock Purdy there in San Francisco. So unless he would get traded, which he might, maybe Tennessee would take a chance on him if they don't get someone they like in the draft. Trey Lance versus Malik Willis QB battle, but you never know. But yeah, it's just after a while, even if someone looks good in college, like on film, it's like if they've continued to suck, after a few games, it's like, well, it just might not be meant to be. So we'll see. Probably couldn't get a whole lot for Willis, but you never know because people tend to want to try to buy young players. So let's move on to running backs, though, because we've got to keep this moving along. And then Naji Harris, somebody that I really want to talk about because he had kind of a down year last year, but a lot of that was because of injury. He was kind of banged up last year. And the Steelers, I like what the Steelers have been doing. They really beefed up their offensive line, signed another big name, the guard from the Eagles. So their O-line actually improved last year. It was just that Naji was banged up himself. But they improved the O-line even more this year because Naji as a rookie was pretty nice, but his O-line was so bad to where he didn't get much going on the ground. He was great as a receiver as a rookie. Last year, regressed as a receiver, a little better as a runner. But I think this year, it'll be his third year. I think he'll be in line for a third-year breakout. He's still fairly young for a running back, so I think it's a good time to buy. And I see you've got Tony Pollard, who's set for an increased workload there in Dallas.
Absolutely. I think I touched on it earlier with Zeke taking a step back or maybe being cut out of the equation entirely. I think Tony Pollard's a guy who has the Austin Eckler-esque upside. He can do it all. He catches a lot of passes. He's a hard runner. He's a versatile runner. He scores a lot of touchdowns. I mean, in the limited action we saw Tony Pollard in last season, he was excellent, especially towards the end of the year. So I'm really intrigued to see what Tony Pollard can do with an increased role. And he's still relatively young, so there's a lot of upside in a dynasty league for having Tony Pollard.
For sure. Yeah, I'd be worried if they would select Bijan Robinson first round. That would kind of put a dent on Tony Pollard. But if they really believe in him, which, I mean, they gave him the franchise tag, so they must think he's pretty good, where if they don't take a running back early, then Pollard could really be in line for a huge year. I personally probably am going to stay away because I believe they're going to probably take Bijan. That's just Jerry Jones. He's flashy. He's going to want another flashy back to complement Pollard, but if you believe they're going to go all in with Pollard, then he is a good buy right now.
I absolutely think that. I mean, you've got other teams chasing Bijan. I don't think he'll be picked by the Cowboys personally. We're betting men here at NOLA, so I would bet on the field in that. But I like Tony Pollard a lot.
Gotcha. And then for sell candidates, I got Josh Jacobs. He's coming off a career year. A lot of times it's good to sell players that are coming off huge years like that. And I just don't see him replicating that, especially with the Raiders, getting rid of Derek Carr for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't see that as an upgrade. So I don't really see where Jacobs is going to have more room to run. If anything, he's going to see more stacked boxes because they'll have Devontae Adams is good, but if Jimmy Garoppolo's not getting him the ball, then defenses are just going to key in on the run. And so Jacobs might have a little trouble replicating his success from last year. And then I see you got DeAndre Swift, whose stock has been trending down ever since Jamal Williams did his thing last year, and now they signed David Montgomery.
Yeah, exactly. And the Lions backfield's just a mess. I don't know what they want to do with it. And having DeAndre Swift last year must have been an absolute nightmare for a lot of people. He's a good young back, but he just can't stay on the field. And when you can't stay on the field, no matter how good you're playing, especially with a guy like David Montgomery coming in, he's a workhorse and he will take a lot of those snaps.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, I think he might be an upgrade over Jamal Williams. He's younger and stuff. So, I'm with you on DeAndre Swift. I don't want any part of him. He had his chance. He didn't take it. So, if you're a dynasty manager, you got to have a short memory to where I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to say. Right? Yeah, just you can't be too loyal, I guess, because a lot of people are DeAndre Swift truthers and don't want to trade him. And it's like, well, you were wrong. Just admit you were wrong. Try and trade him. And to the other guy that is still stuck up on thinking DeAndre Swift's going to be really good. So let's move on to receivers here. My buy here is Calvin Ridley, and he's a little risky, I admit, coming off suspension, but I really like the landing spot going to Jacksonville. I think that's a great landing spot. I think him and Trevor Lawrence gel right away, and he'll be fresh. He'll have fresh legs. Hadn't played football in a year and a half, and he's not that old. He's only like 28, to where should still have another elite season or two left in the tank to where I'm for sure buying him for this season, and he'll probably do good if assuming they extend him. He'll probably have another couple good years. So I'm buying the Calvin Ridley hype. And I see you got KJ Osborne there, who's set for an increased role in Minnesota.
Yeah, with Adam Thielen gone, I think KJ Osborne has shown flashes of being an excellent receiver. Obviously, he's not going to overtake Justin Jefferson as a number one. I think we all know that. And it would be silly to assume otherwise, but he's going to see increased targets, which he scores a lot of touchdowns. And I think he's just got boom potential written all over him. And with an increased role, I mean, how can you not just chomp at the bits to want to take this opportunity? I think KJ Osborne is someone who's still not got that main name recognition. So if you can go out and get him, it should be relatively cheap. And I think there's a lot of upside there.
100%. And our sell candidates, I'm going with DJ Moore, another big name receiver who switched teams this offseason. I'm not really buying it. Going to the Bears, that tends to be where receivers go to die. I know Justin Fields is trending up, but it was more because of his running, not really his passing last year, to where I'm not messing with DJ Moore. I don't really see the move from Carolina to Chicago as an upgrade. If anything, it might be a downgrade.
Yeah, DJ Moore's been a really frustrating player for fantasy owners for the last few years, and I think that'll continue. Uh, I I'm not gonna buy him or get anywhere near him unless he really starts to show a lot of potential consistently in Chicago now.
For sure. And then you got Gabe Davis, who is kind of like DeAndre Swift, a player that a lot of people were hyping up and just kind of fell flat last year.
He was excellent to start the year last year, but it was a steep drop off to end the year. And I'm just not as high on the Bills as I was in years past. I don't think Gabe Davis is good enough to be a legitimate number two, which he is widely considered to be right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo went out and got Josh Allen more targets in the draft. So I'm staying like DJ Moore on your end. I'm staying far away from Gabe Davis.
Yeah, I feel that. Josh Allen, yeah, he's locked on to Stephon Diggs and not many other people. And then they added some new weapons this offseason, including a former Saint in Deontay Hardy. So yeah, Gabe Davis, I don't see him ever being very consistent there. So let's move on to tight ends, our last position here before we get to fantasy baseball waiver wire. Greg Dulcich, man. Greg Dulcich. I'm buying Greg Dulcich. Sean Payton going to Denver. I think he's going to be like, well, we've got this young tight end who can ball out. He might kind of be our next Jimmy Graham. We know Sean Payton was the guy that helped coach Jimmy Graham up into being an elite tight end. And before y'all look at me like I'm crazy, Greg Dulcich, he last year, whenever Sutton and Judy were kind of scuffling there with Russ not getting him the ball, Dulcich was Russ's safety blanket. Dulcich, when he cracked the starting lineup, he was a tight end one most weeks. So I think with an improved offense with Peyton, I think Dulcich gets involved early and often, and I think he'll be for sure a top 10 tight end this year. And you can get him pretty cheap because he didn't play all last year. His full season stats aren't too impressive, but when you look at his per game stats, they're pretty decent. And then with the new coaching staff, should be more targets for him. And then I see you've got a Bears pass catcher there, Gabe, and Cole Kmet.
I do. I want to stay away from the receivers, but I think Cole Kmet trended upward last year. He's still a really young tight end. He's not in that first tier of tight ends, and he's not quite at the top of the middle group, what you call it. I mean, let's be honest. When you're talking about tight ends, you've got your bottom dwellers, you've got your elite tight ends like the Kelseys, the Andrews of the world, and then you've got everything else. And Cole Kmet, he's toward the top of everything else. He's still young. He showed flashes last year of living up to his potential, and I think he could be really good this year. I think he's going to have a good year.
Yeah, because he was kind of like I mentioned, safety blanket. He was kind of like Justin Fields' safety blanket, as well as his red zone target, a guy that saw his touchdowns go up a lot last year. So yeah, I could see Kmet having another nice year. And then for sales, my sell candidate, Darren Waller. I feel like a lot of people are going to hype up Darren Waller going to the Giants, thinking that's an upgrade, but I'm not so sure because Derek Carr really liked Darren Waller to where I don't know if Daniel Jones will be as as just dependent on him. Daniel Jones he hasn't really targeted his tight end much throughout his career. He had Evan Ingram there, but he wasn't that great. And another thing with Waller, he's kind of getting up there to where I feel like I don't want to say he's past his prime, but he's on the back nine of his career to where I wouldn't sell him for peanuts, but if someone's willing to pay the premium for him as if he's still an elite tight end, I'd sell him because I think he's still a tight end one, but I think the days of him being a top 3 to 4 option at the position are over.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there's some risk with guys being on new teams, and that's exactly where I'm at as well with Dalton Schultz. As a Texans fan, I absolutely love this pickup. I think Dalton Schultz is probably the best pass catcher we have right now, but I'm staying away from fantasy. Too much uncertainty in the Texans offense. Texans haven't utilized tight ends since they had C.J. Fedorowicz catching passes for them. So
yeah, Owen Daniels.
Owen Daniels and C.J. Fedorowicz, the last two good Texans tight ends. So I'm staying away from Dalton Schultz, especially on a one-year deal, because you just don't know what's going to happen next year.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, definitely going from the Cowboys to the Texans is not an upgrade. It's funny they basically swapped Schultz for Brandon Cooks. That's kind of funny how that went down.
Yep, essentially.
And so yeah, that's our Dynasty talk. If y'all have any Dynasty League trade questions or say waiver wire, there's not much of a waiver wire in Dynasty. If you have trade questions, startup draft questions, make sure to drop them in the comments because we're about to segue into fantasy baseball. I know a lot of y'all are itching to see what y'all can do to improve y'all's fantasy baseball teams because I know there's always somebody in your lineup that you're like, oh, this guy's not producing. Maybe I should replace him. Or not saying to go crazy, but they do have some guys out there that could be good temporary solutions, maybe even long-term solutions, especially guys that are versatile. And we both got a couple of versatile hitters here for our batters to target. And I'm going with Isaac Paredes of the Tampa Bay Rays, who are undefeated off one of the best starts in MLB history, even though I kind of poo-pooed on them yesterday on Bayou Bets to say they haven't played anybody, which I still stand by that take, but I have to admit, they've got some pretty talented players. They've got more talent than I thought. And Paredes is one of those guys that's versatile. He's eligible at first, second, and third. And he can hit. He's got power. He's even hitting for average this year. Last year, he was more of a slugger, didn't hit for average. This year, he's doing both. So I would, he's only rostered in 29% of leagues. I would pick him up as a bench utility player. And whenever your first, second, or third baseman's off, plug in Paredes and probably will be pretty productive.
Yeah, for sure. Paredes is a guy that I had my eye on, as you well know. He's off to a great start this year. I mean, he's a guy who's hit around the Mendoza line every year of his career, but now he's in this Rays team, and they're high flying so far. So, I mean, ride with the hot hand while you can. He's playing every day.
Yeah, for sure. I think you got an Astros player that's trending up there, getting slept on, not even rostered in 1% of leagues, but I see he's been racking up a lot of hits lately there, and Mauricio Dubon.
Yeah, Mauricio Dubon's off to a great start to the year. Coming into the year, Dusty Baker touted him as one of the two guys, along with David Hensley, to replace Jose Altuve in the short term. And, Mauricio Dubon was really known for his defense, but this is a dude who's hitting 357 so far to start this year. I mean, as soon as Altuve comes back, he's going to become an occasional rotation player. He can play in the outfield. He can play short. He can play second, which is where he's playing right now. But right now, ride with it, especially with all the injuries we talked about at the top of the show. Even just on the Astros, I've mentioned Altuve. There's Michael Brantley, who's out as well. They're going to miss a few more weeks at least. But if you're one of those guys who has Tim Anderson, if you've got O'Neill Cruz, any of those guys, pick up Mauricio Dubon for a few weeks and let him ride this hot streak and take you there because he's an everyday player for the Astros for the time being.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we know the Astros have a stacked lineup, so yeah, he should have plenty of RBI opportunities there, batting behind all those studs. So yeah, Yeah, that's probably more of a deeper league pickup. But yeah, if you're in a deeper league and Paredes is gone, then yeah, Dubon, not a bad option either. So I've got a couple pitchers for y'all as well. Going with Anthony DeSclafani, who at first I was going to go with Sean Manaea because I always try to target Giants pitchers because that park, I mean, they did, I forgot what they call it now. They changed the name of it, I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to butcher it. The park where the Bay Park where they got the canoes going after the home run balls. They're not too many home run balls though, because it's a pitcher's park. It's a pitcher's park out there on San Francisco Bay because that Bay air, it kind of prevents balls from traveling too far, which helps out starting pitchers. And so far, Anthony DeSclafani, off to an amazing start, has yet to walk a batter. Yet to walk a batter. I know it's only 2 starts, but damn, that's crazy. That just tells me that, strikeout to walk ratio, it's 11-0. And if somebody's got that good of a strikeout to walk ratio, that tells me they may have figured something out. So I'm definitely willing to take a chance on DeSclafani. And he gets a cupcake matchup this week. For those looking to stream starting pitchers, he faces the Tigers, y'all. The Tigers, that team. You talk about bad lineups. The Tigers, they cannot hit their way out of anything. They are garbage. So keep riding the DeSclafani wave for now. He's on the right track. And I see you got a Red Sox starter there, Gabe, and Nick Pivetta.
Yeah, Nick Pivetta is a household name for deep baseball fans, especially in the AL East. He's navigated the season pretty well so far. He's the one that's really been able to shut down the Rays. And while he doesn't have quite the walk numbers that DeSclafani has, Nick Pivetta has started the season really well. And, it always seems like every year we go into the season talking about how bad the Boston pitching staff is, and Alex Cora and his crew give us one guy that just stands out. And, we've got the Rick Porcellos and all those guys who have just done really well, almost from out of nowhere. Nate Eovaldi's another one over the last few years that just really blossomed. And I think Nick Pivetta can be that guy.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I appreciate Eddie's comment there. Appreciate you tuning in, Eddie. So, but yeah, Pivetta is somebody that's like, he's been around a while. He's kind of up and down. I feel like he'd be a good one, though, if you probably more of a streamer. But, if you have him on your bench and you can kind of pick your spots with him, if he's facing the Yankees, might not want to start him. But if he gets, someone that's not too good like the A's, and yeah, for sure, fire him up because he racks up strikeouts. And he tends to limit the damage. I mean, he's a seasoned veteran. So, yeah, he's probably more of a deeper league guy, but I could see it.
Yeah, he's given up 6 hits so far this season, only 2 earned runs, I believe, and he's already struck out 12. So he's not going to get you the Garrett Cole strikeout numbers, but as long as Pivetta's still tossing the rock really well, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you're not going to get Garrett Cole on the waiver wire. There's a reason Garrett Cole goes in the first or second round.
Exactly. And if you took the fantasy roundup advice this year in your draft and you didn't draft pitchers till late, maybe you need a guy like Nick Pivetta to complement your incredible lineup.
Yeah, because we weren't all that high on Garrett Cole. I mean, I wasn't saying he was going to be a bust, but I was like, I'm not spending the draft capital needed to get him. So glad. There's a lot of them though that, I mean, Cole's been amazing so far. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of them. I mean, Sandy Alcantara's been a bust so far. Corbin Burns, I'm not saying they're going to stay that bad. Verlander hadn't even thrown a pitch. So I'd say overall, those that avoided pitching earlier are doing okay.
Yeah, and the guys that we mentioned a few weeks ago, like the Brandon Woodruffs of the world, doing well.
Right, yeah, you get them a little cheaper. Yeah, I did that in one league. I just waited, got Woodruff as my ace, and yeah, he's been better than a lot of the ones that got drafted ahead of him.
There we go.
Yes. So, all right, y'all, that's our little baseball segment. If y'all have any questions, waiver wire trade questions, drop them in. We'll be on for a few more minutes here. But it's time to rant now, y'all. It's time to rant. I always got to rant. I've always got something that's kind of annoying me here with this stuff because every day we get these crazy takes, these crazy and the latest is Odell Beckham because obviously Odell Beckham signed with the Ravens there, and then as a result, everyone's going cuckoo crazy over this. Oh, Odell! Oh my God, he's gonna help the Ravens win a Super Bowl. Oh man, him and Lamar together, they can't be stopped. They're gonna overtake the Bengals. Oh my God! Well, guess what, y'all? Odell Beckham by himself is not going to solve the Ravens' problems. The Ravens they've been needing more than just one weapon. They need a lot more than just Odell Beckham, which I think they'll address it in the draft. I mean, this isn't a knock on the Ravens. This rant is just more of a knock on just people's reactions to Odell Beckham, because the dude is over 30 and he hadn't even played football in over a year. Like, what are y'all thinking by thinking that this dude's just going to come in and be the all-pro Odell Beckham, which he hadn't been an all-pro in like 5 years. So back he wasn't an all-pro since his time with the Giants, and since then he's with the Rams, and then the Browns, which was a disaster, and then the Rams, which he had a good stretch run there, but got hurt, so had to take last year off. But it's like, bro, y'all have got to chill out with this Odell Lamar stuff. Can Lamar even get Odell the ball consistently? I mean, Odell's complaining about Baker Mayfield. I feel like Lamar is better than that, but it's like Lamar has struggled with accuracy at times. So, and with Odell not as explosive, coming off of now his second torn ACL, I don't know if this is going to go as planned. And the contract was a little rich there, up to $18 million. Just not sure if this is going to work out. I mean, he'll have his moments, I feel like, but to me, this isn't going to be a solution to their problem of needing a number one wideout. Like, it's like Lamar, I think, still going to be relying on Mark Andrews, because I just don't see Odell coming in there and being what they're paying him to be, which is, I mean, they're paying him number one receiver money or close to it. So I hate to rain on the parade here, but I'm not buying the Odell hype. Bengals still have a way better offense.
I mean, I don't think anyone in their right mind should be saying that the Ravens can even hold a candle to what the Cincinnati Bengals have on offense right now.
Oh,
But
I've heard
I
some
think,
people saying it.
oh, that's crazy. I've never heard that. That's insane. But no, I think Odell Beckham can still be a capable number one. He's miles ahead of anything else that Baltimore had. And I honestly think Baltimore's biggest move this offseason was saying goodbye to Greg Roman. So I don't know. I'll be intrigued to see what they can do on offense now. But I think if you start putting some weapons around Lamar, getting Lamar back is what I touched on earlier, what I think this move does. So I think they're trending upward, but they're not Cincinnati Bengals level yet.
Right. Yeah, it's just, it's recency bias. When something goes down, it's always a question, oh, can they take down the Bengals? The Bengals have been at the top of the division now past couple of years. But yeah, no, I don't see this being that kind of a move, because I mean, Odell to me just isn't as much of an impact player like he used to be. I mean, yeah, a few years ago, I'd be like, hell yeah. I mean, yeah, he's elite, but I mean, he's lost a step, and I mean, we don't know. He may have lost another step coming off this injury. But, well, time will tell. Like I said, I'm kind of harsh on Lamar compared to some, because I mean, I tend to favor quarterbacks that are passers. The new age running quarterbacks. They're intriguing. I love them for fantasy. I mean, for fantasy, I love Lamar Jackson, but it's like this though might actually hurt him so much, because now he's going to feel obligated to throw more, because I got Odell, I've got to throw more, and so I don't know what to think of this. And I'm definitely not buying Odell for fantasy, because, like I said, we don't know how he's going to be coming off that injury. But I'll let it rest. I'll let the results play out. But as of now, I'm not buying it.
Fair enough, and one of those things to keep an eye on, one thing that you said really intrigued me. You said, I'm not buying Odell in fantasy. And I don't think I'm going to buy him either, based on his name recognition. He's going to go relatively early in those middle rounds, and I'm staying away.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and he's somebody that.
No, I was going to say, if he starts creeping into the later rounds, then maybe we can talk. I love me some Odell Beckham Jr., but
yeah, the reason I think
he's going to go.
Yeah, the reason I think he's going to get overdrafted is because people are going to remember the last time he was on the field was a Super Bowl, and he was balling out in that game. So people are going to remember that and think, oh, he's going to get back to that. But it's like, man, he's coming off a serious knee injury. I mean, his knee, and I believe it was the second time that knee got torn, where it's like his knees are I don't want to say they're shot, but they're well, he's probably an injury away from being out of the league. So it's like this is his last chance. So he's definitely gonna have a chip on his shoulder. But it's like, again, it's percentages. This is all about percentages. We're not trying to take shots at these guys. I mean, these are the best athletes in the world. I mean, I applaud Odell Beckham for coming back from 2 ACLs. I mean, shoot, the average human being couldn't do that. The average human being, I'm out of here, I quit. But I mean, he's still got that dog in him as far as he's still a solid receiver in the NFL. But for fantasy, though, I mean, we want players that are young, trending up, haven't had much of an injury history. And Odell he's now on the wrong side of 30 and has had, more injuries than a lot of players have had in their whole career.
Yep.
But
hit the nail on the head there.
Like I said, I'll let the results. Yeah. I'll let the results do the talking. If he can ball out and have 1,000-yard season, y'all can run this back and say I was wrong. But I don't see it happening. I mean, I've been around. I see how this stuff goes. I see it with guys that try to come back from long layoffs. A lot of times it doesn't work out. And the only reason I'm like Calvin Ridley off his long layoff is because it wasn't injury related. It was a suspension. So it's a mental thing. He had the mental health issues and then turns to sports betting rather than seeking help. But if he's right in the head, then he should ball because his stuff was not injury related. So any final thoughts,
Gabe?
Gabe?
A great pickup. No, I just think, you exactly right with the Calvin Ridley. And I think he'll be a really good fit in Jacksonville.
For sure. So, that's going to do it for this week's Fantasy Roundup. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. We'll be back next Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Going to have probably more NFL draft talk. NFL draft less than 3 weeks away. Crazy how fast time's flying. So we'll have more talk about that as well as more fantasy baseball, maybe a little Saints and Pelicans talk. We'll see if the Pels will still be alive. I'm kind of thinking they won't be, but maybe they'll prove me wrong. We'll see. So they play Wednesday against the Thunder at the Smoothie King Center. Hopefully they get a decent turnout there for their first playing game. But that's going to do it here. We'll be back live Thursday for Bayou Bet. Zach and Jim will be on there. But until then, this has been Spencer and Gabe for Fantasy Roundup here on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Appreciate y'all. We'll be back.